They say it appears only at night, when the streets are quiet and the sky is the color of old ash. Some claim it occupies an abandoned lot that's usually empty by day. Others insist they've seen it nestled between two old warehouses, where a narrow alley leads nowhere. The Gray Cinema. They call it a strange, old-fashioned movie theater that shouldn't exist. There are no records of its construction, no official mention of it in the city archives. Yet people swear they've seen it, and a few brave or foolish souls claim to have gone inside. I first heard the rumor in my early 20s, during a late-night bar crawl. A friend of a friend told me about a cousin who vanished after attending a secret screening in a theater that was never there before. I dismissed it as a ghost story, just another urban legend floating through the city's darker corners. But years later, as a freelance journalist who specialized in oddities and local lore, I stumbled upon references to the Gray Cinema again and again. Posts on obscure forums, whispered confessions on Sleep, blurred photographs claiming to show a marquee that vanished with the morning sun. Curiosity got the better of me. Urban legends don't just spring from nothing. Either I'd uncover the truth behind this phantom theater, expose some elaborate hoax, or I'd experience something extraordinary. Either way, I'd have a hell of a story to sell. I spent weeks tracking rumors. I interviewed witnesses who insisted they'd seen it appear after midnight, glowing faintly under flickering neon lights. I compiled half-finished accounts of people who entered and emerged shaken, refusing to talk about what they saw inside. Some never reappeared at all. And one night, after months of fruitless searching, I finally found it. It was late autumn, the air crisp and still. I was wandering near the old industrial district, where disused train tracks and crumbling brick warehouses stretched under a moonless sky. The city noise faded out here, replaced by distant sirens and the rustle of wind through barbed wire fences. At around 1 in the morning, I noticed a faint glow at the end of a narrow alley I'd never bothered to explore. The alley smelled of damp concrete and decay. Its walls were covered in faded graffiti tags. At the far end, where I expected a dead end, I saw a structure that hadn't been there before. A building with a marquee sign, lights flickering weakly, old-fashioned posters behind dusty glass frames. The letters on the marquee spelled out, "The Gray Cinema. Midnight screening." My heart leapt. I approached slowly, expecting it to vanish if I blinked. But it remained solid. A 2-story theater front with a curved roof and ornate trim. The exterior paint was chipped, its color lost somewhere between gray and silver, as if all life had been drained from it. Yet the ticket booth window was lit from within. A shadow moved behind the glass. I took out my phone, aiming to record video. The screen flickered. Camera malfunctioning. Typical. I tried taking a photo instead. The result, a blurred mess. Frustrated, I slipped the phone back into my pocket. I'd come this far for a story. I could at least go inside. Gathering my courage, I approached the ticket booth. A thin, pale man wearing a bow tie and a vest greeted me with a polite smile. His skin had an odd sheen, like old porcelain. "Good evening," he said in a voice that sounded hollow. "One ticket?" I hesitated. "How much?" He blinked, as if puzzled by my question. "No charge. The screening is free for those who find us." He handed me a paper ticket. The ink smelled of old ink ribbons and mold. "Right through the doors," he said. Voice soft. "Enjoy the show." My heart hammered. Everything about this was wrong. Unnatural. But I couldn't turn back now. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped into the lobby. The lobby was dimly lit by sconces shaped like old film reels. The walls were paneled wood. The carpet a faded crimson. A concession stand stood to the right. manned by a woman in a 1950s-style usher uniform. Rows of candy bars and popcorn boxes looked old-fashioned, labels slightly off, as if recreated from memory rather than reality. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and dust. There was a hush, like a library at midnight, broken only by the soft crackle of a distant record player. I noticed no doors leading outside other than the one I'd used. The place felt enclosed, a world unto itself. I approached the concession stand. The woman smiled. Her lipstick was too bright, her expression too still. Complimentary popcorn, she offered, holding out a striped box. I took it out of politeness. The popcorn felt stale and cold. I didn't dare taste it. "Where's the screening?" I asked. She pointed to a corridor lined with old movie posters. They were strange, each depicting a film I'd never heard of: The Silent Guest, Lullaby for the Lost, 100 Doors with No EXI. Each title more unsettling than the last. As I walked down that corridor, the floorboards creaked softly. Doors led to small screening rooms. A sign at the end read Main Theater. I followed it. The main auditorium was larger than expected, with rows of plush seats facing a grand screen. A heavy curtain of gray velvet covered the screen, and the ceiling was domed, painted with faded murals of stars and moons. Only a handful of people were seated, spaced out randomly. They didn't talk, didn't check their phones, just stared ahead as if waiting for something. I took a seat in the middle row, clutching my popcorn. The silence pressed on my ears. I tried to get a closer look at the other patrons, but the dim light made their faces indistinct. I thought I saw someone who looked vaguely familiar, a man I'd interviewed about the legend, who'd refused to come back to the area. Could it be him? Or was my mind playing tricks? A soft hum signaled the start of the show. The overhead lights dimmed further. The curtain drew back silently. The projector, hidden behind glass, flickered to life. No opening credits. The film started abruptly with a static shot of an empty street corner in what looked like my city. I recognized a distinctive mural in the background. Was this live footage? The camera did not move. Then, a figure stepped into frame, me. I gasped, hand flying to my mouth. On screen, I saw myself standing at that bar where I'd first heard the rumor years ago. The angle was from behind, as if some invisible cameraman had followed me through my life. The footage changed. Scenes of me working on my laptop in my cramped apartment, researching this legend. Another cut, me sitting at a cafe, reading old articles. Then a scene of me outside right now, approaching the alley. I watched, heart pounding, as the on-screen version of me reached the gray cinema and hesitated at the door. How could they have this footage? I glanced around, horrified. The others still stared straight ahead, unblinking. I tried to get up, but my legs felt heavy, numb. The film continued. Now it showed dark images, flickering scenes I didn't recognize, empty rooms with my belongings arranged in strange ways. A version of my apartment, but distorted. Voices whispered just out of hearing range. Then a final scene, my parents' old home. Years after their deaths. My childhood bedroom, decaying and filled with cobwebs. A voice, my mother's voice, calling my name softly. I felt tears sting my eyes. Whoever made this film knew too much, saw too much. The screen went dark. No credits, no sound, just the oppressive silence. Then the lights rose slightly, and people began to stand. They moved towards the exits without a word. I rushed after them, desperate for answers. But when I emerged into the lobby, I realized all the other patrons had vanished. Only the concession stand woman remained, smiling her frozen smile. I backed away, determined to leave this place. I tried the main entrance doors. Locked. I pulled harder. Nothing. The ticket booth was empty now. The windows were dark. Panic surged in my chest. I turned to find another exit. A side door led into a hallway lined with old film canisters and piles of dusty scripts. I followed it, searching for a way out. The corridor stretched on longer than it should, twisting and turning. I passed storage rooms filled with props and mannequins dressed in period costumes. Some mannequins' eyes seemed to follow me. Every door I tried led to another odd space, a break room with old newspapers pinned to the walls, each headline distorted, referencing events I'd never heard of. A dressing room with cracked mirrors, where I glimpsed my reflection shifting in unsettling ways. I thought I saw a second figure behind me in the mirror, tall, featureless, just a silhouette, but when I turned around, no one was there. The building felt alive, shifting. The passages made no sense. I tried retracing my steps, but ended up somewhere new each time. Eventually, I found a heavy door marked projection room. Maybe I could confront whoever was running the show. The projection room was cramped and smelled of vinegar and dust. The old projector stood at the center, reels spinning quietly, though the screen below was now dark. A lone figure tended to it, a tall, thin person in a black suit and gloves. Their back was turned. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "What's going on here? Let me out." They paused, then turned slowly. They wore no mask, but their face was off. The features were too smooth, eyes too large and dark, mouth a thin line that never quite moved. Yet I understood them when they spoke, as if their voice came from the air itself. "You came seeking a story," the projectionist said. "You wanted to reveal our secret. Now you're part of it." My blood ran cold. I didn't come to harm anyone. I just want to leave. They tilted their head. "There is no simple leaving. You have seen what others haven't. Our cinema thrives on such curiosity. We show you what you dare not recall, what you fear to confront." I trembled. "You showed me my life." "How?" A soft chuckle, like static. "We reflect truths you keep hidden. We feed on your fear, your confusion. But if you wish to depart, there may be a price." I knew better than to trust them. Still, what choice did I have? What price? The projectionist produced a small film reel from a drawer. It bore my name, scrawled in old ink. "Your memory, your essence. Give us something precious, an important memory, a deep regret, or a cherished hope, and we might allow you an exit." I wanted to refuse, but the weight of this place pressed on me. I felt my strength draining. If I didn't escape, would I become another silent patron, wandering the halls forever? I swallowed hard. Take something that hurts less. My regret over never reconciling with my father. I offered it quickly, hoping to be rid of a painful memory that haunted me since his passing. The projectionist shook their head. "We do not want your pain. We crave what makes you, you. A cherished hope. The driving passion that led you here. The memory of your happiest day. Something that will leave a void behind. One we can fill." Tears welled up. I thought of my happiest memory, getting my first article published, calling my mom to celebrate, feeling truly proud. The thought of losing it felt like tearing out a piece of my heart. But what choice did I have? "Fine," I whispered. "Take my happiest memory. Take it, and let me go." The projectionist stepped closer, raised a gloved hand, and pressed 2 fingers gently against my forehead. I felt a sharp, icy sensation, as if something was being pulled from my mind. I gasped, the tears drying instantly. I no longer recalled the warmth of that memory. It was gone, leaving a dull ache. The projectionist withdrew. You'll find a door at the end of the corridor now. That will lead you out. But remember, what we take, we keep. They turned back to the projector, dismissing me. I stumbled out, holding my head, feeling hollowed out. True to their word, at the end of a corridor that hadn't existed before, I found a heavy wooden door. It opened onto the alley. The night air hit my face, cold and fresh. I stumbled onto the street, expecting the building to vanish behind me. Instead, I turned and saw nothing. Just a blank brick wall. The gray cinema was gone. The relief was overwhelming. I staggered back to my apartment, numb and shaken. I tried to write down what happened, to record every detail while it was fresh. But something felt off. The words wouldn't flow. The memory I'd given up, the joy and pride I once knew, left me struggling to connect with my own emotions. Still, I documented everything. I had to warn people. In the following days, I attempted to share my experience online. Every time I posted about the gray cinema, the file got corrupted or the post failed. My phone glitched whenever I tried to show anyone the alley. It was as if the cinema still exerted some influence, silencing my attempts to expose it. I grew paranoid. I thought I saw the concession stand woman on my street corner. Once, late at night, I heard faint projector whirring outside my window. I refused to look. The worst part was the emptiness inside me. Without my happiest memory, life felt gray, flavorless. I could remember factual details, my childhood, my friends, my career, but the emotional core was hollow. I'd traded it away in that cursed place. 1 month passed. I tried to move on, picking simpler stories to write about. But nightmares plagued me. In my dreams, I wandered those corridors, trapped between screens showing fragments of my life and distorted faces begging for release. I dreamed of the projectionist rummaging through my thoughts like old film reels. Then one night, I woke to find something on my desk, an old movie ticket with my name on it. From the gray cinema. I hadn't saved any souvenir. So where did this come from? I ripped it up, tossed it out the window. The next morning, it lay on my kitchen table, intact. I tried burning it. The ashes reassembled in my mailbox. Panic tightened my chest. I realized I was never truly free. The gray cinema had let me go physically, but it kept a hook in my soul. Without my cherished memory, I was vulnerable. Perhaps they expected me to return, desperate to regain what I lost. I vowed never to go back. But as nights rolled on, subtle changes in my world piled up. Streets looked slightly different. Some shops I frequented were gone. Friends I called didn't remember certain events we'd shared. It was as if reality itself was eroding around me. Desperate, I decided to confront the gray cinema again. Maybe I could bargain back my memory, restore my life. I searched every corner of the city at night, returning to deserted alleys and abandoned lots. No sign of it. The frustration gnawed at me. Then, one silent evening, I spotted a faint glow in a rundown lot near the old river docks. The grass there was overgrown, and junked cars lay rusting in heaps. At the center, the gray cinema, standing as if it had always been there, marquee flickering faintly. This time, the marquee read, "Special engagement and no return." My heart sank. Still, I approached, The ticket booth was empty. The door swung open on its own. Inside, the lobby was darker. The sconces dimmer. The concession stand empty. Popcorn scattered on the floor. A hush deeper than before weighed on me. I called out, "Projectionist. I know you're here. I want my memory back." My voice echoed strangely. No response. I ventured deeper. Passing the main theater. The screen was torn. Seats overturned. Something had changed. A sense of decay and anger permeated the air. In a side corridor, I found them, silent figures dressed in usher uniforms. Standing motionless. Faces blank. They reminded me of mannequins more than humans. I hurried past. I reached the projection room door. Locked. I banged on it. "Let me in." The door creaked open slightly, revealing darkness inside. I entered, heart pounding. The projection room was empty this time. Just a projector rattling softly with no film loaded. A single chair sat in the corner, facing a wall. I approached it, and a voice seeped into my mind. "You returned. We knew you would. You are not satisfied with what you lost. But what can you offer us now?" The voice came from nowhere and everywhere. I turned in circles, fists clenched. "Give me back my memory. You had no right to take it." A low chuckle. "We had every right. You agreed to leave. You traded something dear. Now you come back to bargain again? You must offer more." I realized with dread that I had nothing left of equal value. My happiest memory was gone. What else could I give? My sense of self was already diminished. "Please," I whispered, voice cracking. "You've shown me my life. You know I have little left. Let me go. Let me be whole. I'll give you my ambition, my reason for writing. Anything." Silence stretched. "Then, we do not merely take. We shape. We are an echo of forgotten dreams. Of stories that never found their endings. Each soul who enters feeds us. Enriches our archive of human emotions and fears. We gave you a chance to leave with minimal damage. You squandered your freedom by returning." I collapsed to my knees. "Just tell me what you want." The projector flickered to life behind me, projecting on a blank wall. Images appeared, my present life. Drained of joy. Me wandering the city. Failing to connect with friends. A future scene, me aging. Alone. Never regaining that spark. Tears rolled down my cheeks. The voice sighed softly. "We can restore what you lost. But the price is greater now. Give us your identity as a whole, your name. Your history. Everything that defines you. In return, we will return your memory and let you go. But you will not know who you are outside these doors." Horror chilled my veins. If I gave up my identity, would I even be me? Or just a husk wandering the streets without a past? A nameless face? I considered the alternative, trapped here forever. Or leaving empty-handed again. Reality warping around me. I remembered what it felt like to have that happiest memory, the warmth. The sense of purpose. Without it, I was just existing. Not living. "Okay," I said, broken and trembling. "Take it. Take my identity." The air crackled. A shape coalesced in front of me, the projectionist. Or something like them. Indistinct yet present. They reached out. Fingers brushing my temple. A sensation like ice and fire coursed through my mind. Images of my childhood. My name written on notebooks. My mother's voice calling me. The address of my childhood home. My first kiss. my college graduation, all of it began to unravel. I tried to cling to something. Anything. But it slipped through my mental grasp. Soon I was left with a fog where my biography used to be. I knew I had traded it away, but couldn't recall what it was exactly. A rush of warmth flooded in. The memory I'd lost, my happiest moment, returned in a sudden burst of color. I remembered holding the phone, hearing my mother's joyous sobbing as I told her about my success. The love, the pride, the sense of accomplishment, it was all back. Tears of relief streaming down my face. But now, as I stood up, I realized I had no context. Who was my mother to me? I knew I loved her, but I didn't remember my own name. I recalled being a journalist, but not how I got that job or why. Just fragments. Disjointed. The voice said softly, "Follow the corridor to the exit." I stumbled out, tears drying. The halls were quieter, shorter now. I found the lobby, deserted and dark. The front door opened easily. Outside, the lot was empty. No cinema. Just the silent city sleeping under distant streetlights. Standing on the sidewalk, I tried to remember my name. Nothing. I knew I should have one. I recalled the trade. Vaguely. But not the specifics. I patted my pockets, a wallet with ID cards. Photographs. The ID showed a name, but it meant nothing to me. The photos depicted smiling faces I recognized by feeling, not by detail. I tried to find my apartment. After wandering for hours, I stumbled upon a building whose corridors sparked a hint of familiarity. Inside my unit, objects and furnishings stirred phantom recollections, but my personal narrative was gone. On my desk lay notes, research about the gray cinema, interviews I had done. I read them with detached curiosity. I must have written them, but I didn't recall doing so. My happiest memory burned bright inside me, comforting yet cruel. I knew I once cared about someone, achieved something, but the rest of my life's tapestry was shredded. I existed out of context, an actor remembering only a single scene from a play whose script was lost. I tried to reconnect with old friends. They called me by a name that felt foreign. They asked if I was okay. I answered mechanically. I had no story to share. I tried to resume my career, but without the continuity of my identity. My writing felt hollow. I had no drive, no personal stakes. At night, I sometimes saw a flicker of film real light in a distant alley or caught a faint whisper of a projector's hum. The gray cinema was out there, drifting through the city's forgotten spaces, feeding on secrets, regrets, and hopes. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to rebuild a sense of self. Maybe I could forge a new identity, but the void was too large. Without my personal narrative, everything felt secondhand, forced. I tried to remember my mother's face from that cherished memory. I knew it should link me to something vital, but it hung in isolation. A bright star in a dark sky with no constellations. One night, as I walked through the city, I noticed subtle changes again. A shop I swore I visited before had vanished. Street names felt off. I realized that by giving away my identity, I'd loosened my anchor to this reality. Without a firm sense of who I was, reality had no fixed reference. The world and I drifted apart. Soon, I feared, I might slip through the cracks entirely. At midnight, on a deserted street, I glimpsed a faint silhouette, a figure wearing a vest and bow tie, stepping behind a corner. I followed, heart pounding. Rounding the corner, I found nothing but a blank wall. Yet I smelled vanilla and dust, heard a distant laughter like a muffled audience. I understood then, I would never truly escape the gray cinema. By returning and bargaining again, I'd allowed it to weave itself more deeply into my life. Now reality frayed at the edges, and I drifted in half-worlds. Perhaps, in time, I would find the cinema again and trade something else until nothing remained of me but a ghostly patron, sitting in the dark, watching endless reels of strangers' lives. As I stood there, caught between worlds, I laughed bitterly. At least I had my happiest memory back. A cruel treasure in a void of meaning. The cinema had won. I was just another lost soul. A whisper of a story never fully told, haunting the city's streets like a living phantom. In the silence, I swore I heard the faint whir of a projector reel turning, forever capturing fragments of human existence, feeding on them, and vanishing before dawn.